Ecclesiastes 5:18. This is what I, the preacher, have seen. It is good to come for one to eat and drink, and to enjoy the good of all his labor, for which he toils under the sun all the days of his life, which the Lord has given him, for this is his portion. There's nothing wrong with enjoying what the Lord has blessed us with. But when what the Lord has blessed us with comes before the Lord, that is the problem. Oftentimes the blessings become what we treasure the most instead of the Lord. And that's where the problem is. We're not willing to give up when the Lord wants us to. It becomes more than what the Lord wants it to. Okay. Let's see. 2 Corinthians 1:23 through 2:7. Moreover, I call God for a record upon my soul, that I spare you. I came not yet to Corinth. Paul knew it wasn't time for him to go to Corinth. He wanted to, but the Lord didn't will it. He's saying, I wanted to go. You can count on that I wanted to go. The Lord knows I wanted to go. But it wasn't time yet. We need to trust in what the Lord has for us. Yes, we have ideas of what we want to do, but sometimes He won't open the door because it ain't time yet. Sometimes what He wants us to do isn't what we feel is what we want to do. But that shouldn't stop us, because what He wants us to do, we should be doing regardless of whether we want to do it or not. Verse 24. Not for that we have dominion over your faith, but are helpers of your joy. For by faith you stand. Paul wasn't saying, I'm over you, I'm superior to you. Paul said, we're on level ground. We're just doing what we can to help you grow in faith. It's our joy to help you. How often do we react in a way to where it's our joy to help others in the faith? Or do we look at it as a task we gotta do? Or is it our pleasure to help them grow? If we're truly where we need to be with the Lord, it's going to be our joy, our pleasure to help those of faith in any way we can. It'll be an honor for us. And that's why Paul was looking at it. Paul was saying, I'm not over you. Yes, the Lord's blessed me more. The Lord's put me in control of more things and given me more opportunities. But He's given me the pleasure to help you grow in faith. I'm just a part of His bigger plan, is what Paul's saying. Yeah, I'm doing all this, but don't put me where I don't need to be. Don't put me on a pedestal. The Lord is the one who sent me, so He's the one that you need to thank. Stand your faith for the Lord, not for me. Even through encouragement, Paul gives teaching. But I determined this with myself, that I would not come again to you in heaviness. Paul didn't want to go to them when he was going through something. Paul was a servant of the Lord, so he was always facing rejection and struggle, because his goal was, the Lord's goal for him was to spread the gospel. And oftentimes you're going to face more rejection than not when doing that. Paul was hated by some people, and it would have caused him to sorrow and to grieve and to hurt, just as Christ did. Paul was in the same boat. If Paul wasn't suffering, if Paul wasn't in sorrow, then his heart wasn't where it needed to be. Because even if he wasn't even if he wasn't being attacked by people, they weren't coming to faith. There was people rejecting it. which should have bothered him, which should have caused him to grieve. His love for them was what it should have been. Verse 2. For if I make you sorry, who is he that makes me glad? But the same which is made sorry by me. So he's pretty much saying bad mood spread. I don't want to come in there feeling sorry, feeling bad, because you need joy brought to you. You need happiness. You're going through your own struggles, and you need somebody to uplift you. If I'm in a state where I'm not happy, I'm not going to be able to do that. Paul wasn't making excuses not to go. Paul was saying, I need to go to uplift. He knew the purpose of him going. One of them was to uplift them, to bring them happiness. Paul also realized you can't bring happiness when you're not in a state of happiness yourself. Paul wasn't depressed. Paul was just downcast. I don't know if Paul ever got depressed because he always had the Lord. But he did go through periods of sadness. And Paul never questioned what he was called to do. He knew. But rejection isn't easy to deal with. Especially when they're not rejecting you. They're rejecting the Lord you serve. It's a hard thing to get through. Verse 3. And I wrote this same to you, lest when I came I should have sorrow from them of who I ought to rejoice, having confidence in you all, that my joy is the joy of you all. So he also didn't want to go to correct them. He wanted to go in a time when they were doing what was right for the Lord, and he could say, you're doing a good job. It wasn't just his outlook, what he was dealing with. He wanted them to be in the right place when he went. He wanted them to be following the will of the Lord, not following for the ways of the world when he went. He wanted to be an encouragement for them to keep following the Lord rather than a corrector to tell them they need to follow the ways of the Lord. Paul's done both. He ain't afraid to do both. He just feels he don't need to keep beating it down. And the Lord has him for other things. They've heard, they know, he's told them what they're supposed to do. Unless they're doing it, you don't feel led to go back. Verse 4. For out of my much affliction and anguish of my heart I wrote to you with many tears, not that you should be grieved,